Welcome to Campbelltown Library's Video Book Reviews. I'm Jasmine, and today I'm not reviewing a book at all. We in fact have a special guest, Michael Gerard Bauer.
Beautiful, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So Michael's visiting us from Brisbane, and fresh off his win from the Children's Book of the Year Awards from last year's Rodney Loses It for the early years category. Yep. Yes. And of course, you've written another book and released it in between those times with the Things That Will Not Stand, which we reviewed on our video book reviews earlier. So check back to see our video book review for that. And here we have you here today.
That's exciting.
Yes. So where do you get all your great ideas?
It's funny. I often say to the students I speak to that all the books I've written have all started from small ideas and the things that have happened around me. Some of them, the Docom Ishmael books that I've read, started because there was a picture on my wall that made me think something. Some of them have started from little childhood memories. Some of them have started from lines I've heard or just a scene that I've imagined. And I think it's like putting a story together is like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, except at the beginning you don't have all the pieces. You just find a couple of little pieces that seem interesting, something about a character or a line that makes you think something, and then you try to find out what connects to all that and build them up. So story ideas can come from anywhere.
Do you write every day?
No, I don't. If I'm in the middle of writing a story and I'm sort of really involved in it, I do try to write as regularly as possible. But I do have quite long breaks between writing. If I finish something, I don't usually then start the next day on the new thing. I think about it for quite a while before I feel I'm ready to get back into writing. But I never start writing until I've imagined the end of the story. So I sort of work things out in my head quite a bit, and I know sort of what the story's about and some of the scenes, and this is how it's all going to end up, and then I can feel I can start to write because I know what I'm headed towards or what I want to get to. Yeah.
What do you do to put yourself in the headspace of young people? Because you write for a number of different ages. You've written for Rodney Loses It for the early years, but you've also written for the middle grade fiction, lots of middle grade fiction, with Eric Vale, Epic Fail, and the Derek Danger Dale. And of course, you've written for teenagers with Running Man and Things That Will Not Stand. And so how do you put yourself in those different age categories when you're writing?
Yeah, I really don't. I don't think there's the process I go through by any means. I think being a teacher, come from a teaching background where I grew up with kids of different ages around me. I was a secondary school teacher. So when I started to write the first novels, which were young adult novels, I think I was just imitating voices I heard. It seemed fairly natural for me to do that. And I always say too that people ask me that question, how do you write for that age group or write for this age group? And I say to them, when I start writing a story, my audience is me. Like my first audience is me. And I'm just writing a story that I like. But I think that as a writer, the first thing you have to do is entertain yourself. You have to write something that you like, that you feel something about. And if you can do that and be happy with it yourself, then hopefully there are people out there like you who will share your enjoyment of that story that you've created. And I also say that there's not one teenage voice, that there's teenagers speak in many different voices. And when I was a teacher, I would have people in my classes, like when I was teaching at the boys' school, last school I was at, and this boy might speak very, very formally, in fact might use more formal language than I would use, and this boy might use a lot of slang from the 60s for them. That's what his parents do, and this boy hardly speaks at all, and so it's not just one voice. And I think that's the thing too, that not all teenagers are the same, and not all people of this particular age are the same.
I'm going to ask the obvious question that you probably get asked a lot.
Can't wait.
I want to be a writer, Michael. How? How do I get started?
Well, here's the thing. Sometimes people say that they want to write, and I say I wanted to be a writer for quite a number of years, and that's the easiest thing in the world to do, to want to be a writer, because you don't have to do anything.
No.
You just have to want, and that's it. And I say if you really want to be a writer, you actually have to write something, and you have to send it away or publish it or do whatever you want to do with your writing, but you have to actually do the writing. So when I meet people who say they want to be a writer and they say, I'm writing something, I've got it in the bottom drawer, I say finish it, write it at some stage and send it away. What's the worst that can happen? If you don't do it, you'll never get published. If you do it, there's a chance you might. Take that risk, and also you have to persevere and keep going, because you may not get published first. You might get those rejections. The first thing I tried to write, which was a picture book about my son, I sent that to 5 or 6 people. I got some nice comments, but it didn't ever get published. The second thing did. So, yeah, I keep going.
But you did your own drawings for the first picture
That
book.
could have been a mistake. I see what you're saying. I get it. I've always wondered why I did. And now you've cruelly pointed it out.
I was going to say, so obviously you need to work with illustrators.
Yeah.
So
Well, that
how
was-
hard is that to
yeah.
create a picture book with
Okay.
an illustrator that
Yeah.
you may never meet?
I've only done the one book, the one picture book with an illustrator that I didn't know, and that was Rodney Loses It. And we sometimes writers and the illustrators work really closely together, and they're in the same space, and they talk about what the book is. But for Rodney Loses It, we were very separate. I had written all the verses, but we didn't actually meet each other until after the book was published and after the book won that award. We met each other after that in person, although we had talked on email and we're Facebook friends. So that was a very separate thing. With the Eric Vale books and the Derek Dale books, my son Joe did the illustration, so we know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
But we did work separately as well. I wrote the stories, first one, and then he started to send the illustrations in, and I just loved it. He did a great job. And it was fun. When we did the second books and the other books, we did sort of talk about them a bit more. I tell him what the story is going to be. And then sometimes I sort of wrote stories that I thought would appeal to him. So Joe's a young filmmaker as well, illustrator, and he loves science fiction and aliens and superhero movies. So the second Eric Vale book was Eric Vale Super Male, and it's about having a superheroes week at school and all that. So I knew that he would love coming up with the characters. I'd make up superhero characters, he'd have to draw them.
Book Week's theme this year is Reading is My Secret Power. So Eric Vale's second book is all about being a superhero, which is a great book to read to celebrate Book Week.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for coming to our library and entertaining so many children today with your fabulous stories, and of course coming and sharing your tips about writing with us here today.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and the students today were just wonderful. I had a ball with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.